Welcome to the Audiobook Lovin Podcast, discussing all things audiobooks with the authors that write the stories and the narrators that perform them. Brought to you by Viviana, Enchantress of Books.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Season 4, Episode 18 of the Audiobook Lovin Podcast. Today, I am chatting with author Nikki Castle. Welcome, Nikki. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, baby?
I'm doing good. I'm excited. She called me baby.
I like that name. I got a friend named Vivian. I think it's such a cool name.
It is. Yeah. No, I go by, people are like, oh, do you always go by Vivian? I'm like, no, friends call me Vivi, stuff like that. As long as Vivian doesn't come out, because that's not the name. I used to have a friend in high school that I knew I was in trouble with when she busted out with Vivian. Oof. I'm like, oh, so that's still like trauma for me. So Vivi's
it's like a scolding from your mom.
Yeah, and I don't have a middle name, so that whole like using the full name never really applied. But that just using the first name from my mom, from a parent's perspective, yes. But from her, it was Vivian. Like, oh, shit.
Oh okay. No, what I do
now, yeah. But yeah, so Vivi's great, no worries. So we have you here in the podcast. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, how long you've been writing, and how you got started?
So I am fairly new, I guess, in the romance world. I published my first book a little over a year and a half ago. Been writing with the goal of publishing books for 2 years, and I just kind of fell in love with it right away. I actually I never really read romance. I was mostly a thriller reader, and then when COVID hit, and actually TikTok came up, and Den of Vipers was the very first romance book that I read because it was big on TikTok. I don't know. I feel like I read that one. Then I'm like, oh, this is a whole genre that I know nothing about. And I just started devouring books, and actually wrote my first book just because I wanted a collection of tropes that I hadn't read together before. So, and then once I published my first book, it kind of took off a few months later, and I just kind of never looked back. So I've got 3 novels and 1 novella out right now. I'm working on the 4th book in my novel series, and I just love everything about this genre, this community, the idea of being an author. I've been kind of writing my whole life. I was an English major in college, and my dad's side of the family, they're all writers. So it was always kind of a joke that, Nikki would write a book at some point. And yeah, once I found romance, that's when it was like, oh, this is what I should be writing. So yeah, fairly new, but I love it, and I'm in the process of quitting my day job so I can do this full time. That's kind of my next big goal. So
that's fantastic. That's my
background.
Yeah. Now you write, and I know it's on your website, so I'm going to make sure I get this right because I love how it was written there. So I'm going to quote. It says that you write steamy love stories about alpha MM fighters and the women that melt their badass playboy hearts.
Yes. So
tell us about that, please.
Yeah. So, and it's MMA fighters. Yes. I just want to make sure I'm not writing about MM fighters. Not that I wouldn't. But,
sorry, MMA. Yes.
No. It's all right. I just always like that's what I kind of feel is my niche. So I'm very proud and of the type of athletes that I write about. So MMA is mixed martial arts. It's not a very known. I don't want to say it's not a known sport, but people don't know too much about it. And I haven't seen too much of it in romance. And I used to fight. My husband was a very high level pro fighter. We're both coaches. We own an MMA gym. So that was one of the tropes that I really wanted to write about because, like I said, there's not a lot of it. And if you read any of my MMA books, you can always, I feel like my love for the sport bleeds through the pages because I'm so obsessed with it. So the series that I'm more known for, it's called the Fight Game series. And each book is about a different fighter, in the gym. So you have this kind of this found family basis, where there's men in the gym, there's women in the gym, there's all different kinds of personalities and relationships. So each book is about a different fighter, and they're all alpha. I'm obsessed with, very alpha men, which you kind of have to be in a sport like MMA. It's just kind of part of it. And then I love writing very badass alpha females as well to kind of match them, because you kind of have to you have to be at that level when you're dealing with an MMA fighter. So yeah, each book is very different as far as the personalities, but but yeah, the men are always alpha and the women are always very badass as well. So that's kind of my love. I wrote a novella last year to kind of delve into something else. I just wanted to try something different, and I absolutely loved it. I'm actually turning that one into a novel this year. But my true passion lies with these MMA men.
Yeah, no, it's a very unique sport. I've seen a bit. I have some friends that like it, and my background, I also have some martial arts background
Oh,
in,
nice.
yeah, it's Taekwondo. Got my black belt and everything. So anytime that there's some form of
Wow.
martial arts, I'm always like, "Ooh, what's that?" And so when this kind of came into more popular view, in the world in general, but even now I'm kind of seeing some of that kind of different kind of fighting in romance, just because it's like you were saying, it's a whole like badass alpha
Yeah.
to get in that ring to purposely get, try to get his ass kicked, but also kick some ass.
Yeah,
And then
exactly.
and I'm going, oh, that's gonna hurt because I know what that
I
hurts. Do you
know what that
find
feels like.
right? Yeah, I don't. I miss some of it. At the same time, I'm going, it's okay. I don't miss the bruises.
Yeah. I don't miss the
Having
ice baths.
yeah, and having to explain that when you're a teenager, and like, and people have, you
Oof.
guys okay? I'm like, yeah, no, please don't call DCF. This is, here's here's my stuff, here's my things, and they're like, oh, okay. And but it was also
Just
nice to people like not try to bully or anything because they're like, oh no, she can kick ass, literally.
yeah. Yep.
You know,
I've been in those situations too.
right? So when you're at the gym, because you're saying that you own one and things like that, and you're seeing the players out there fighting, does it ever pop into your head going, ooh, add romance scene now? Do you get inspired by some of these individuals? Even your husband, I mean, does he know that maybe he's an inspiration? Does he hope he's an inspiration?
Well, so he's very proud of the fact that the very first book in the series,
Mm-hmm.
and the first book I ever published, when I published it, I wasn't sure if it was going to be the last book I write. It was just something that, everyone always says, oh, I'm going to write a book one day, but no, like not a lot of people actually do it. So when I published that one, I wasn't sure if it was going to be my last one or my only one. And I'm a big proponent, not for everyone, but for me, that I write what I know.
Mm-hmm.
So that first book is very much based on my husband and I's personalities. So the characters in the book are based on us, and I've pulled quotes straight from my husband's mouth and put them in that book. So he is basically my real life Tristan, to the point that I did a release party a couple months ago for a book, and I had readers in town, and my husband was there, and people had him sign some things, some book plates and things
That's
as
awesome.
Tristan West.
Aw.
So he's very proud of the fact, and it's also to the point that if I get reviews that say they don't like Tristan, he gets very offended. um, so yes, he's very close to it. So most of it is based on him. I kind of pull from him for a lot of the male characters, even if they're in different books. My fighters, because I am a coach. I don't fight anymore, but I love coaching way more than I ever loved fighting, which was
Mm-hmm.
super interesting to me. But I try not to sexualize them. So it's a weird thing where like I pull things from fighters that I know, and I pull maybe lines or personality traits more than anything. My characters tend to take on kind of lives of their own. So there's not too many things that are based on actual people. And I try not to actually, I posted a couple videos of my fighters because their relationships and their brotherhood and how they are with each other it's like my favorite part of it, and kind of my favorite part of the series too, because like I said, it's kind of a found family thing. So I'll pull like certain things, but I try not to focus on them too much. And they actually, only one of my fighters knows that I write these books, and he's read them and he loves them and has no problem with them. But for the most part, that's
Mm-hmm.
kind of where I try to put a little bit of distance, just as far as the fighters in my gym. Now, I've pulled plenty of scenes from other people and fights that I've seen and fighters that I've met because they're not mine. So I don't really have to worry about that. But it's an interesting kind of line that I had to draw. So I find that when I'm in the gym, I'm coach. And
Mm-hmm.
then, when I'm home, I'm writing about fighters. So kind of yes and no, I guess, is the
Yeah.
answer to that question.
No, but that's also good too. I think sometimes when it comes down to this, the gender, the community is fantastic. and we are there to support each other. But there's sometimes that line that some fans sometimes seem to cross because of the characters, or they, or some of the things that are being written. It might be a little bit darker, a lot more sexier, and things like that. And sometimes, some people may get a little bit like over zoomed, like excited about certain things, and we're like, whoa, these are some of these people are real people, the authors to themselves, but also if they're inspired by someone, or if we have a narrator too sometimes that are voicing the characters, we're like, dude, no, remember, character, not real person. Or am I, like, also like, still a person, boundaries, there's a line to it,
real person.
Yeah. But I'm just too, I think it's one of those when anytime that we're like, oh, that was, it's something that we might have said when it gets on the book as a reader, we're like, oh, that's what I said. Or a name pops up too. I've had friends that are authors. They're like, hey, is it okay if I use your name? I'm like, yeah, I just spelled it right.
Yeah.
It's one N. Otherwise, I'm going to be like, it's not me.
Yeah.
So that's cool. No, it's great. I think that it's good to have those boundaries, and for your as a coach, for them to feel safe and able to be themselves around you without worrying if something that they say or something that they do is going to end up in a book, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And just I mean, I know you and I were kind of talking about pen names before we jumped on here, and I'm very open about the fact that Nikki is my first name, but Castle is a pen name. So I specifically chose a pen name when I wanted to start doing this, and I always like to be open about it. It has nothing to do with any kind of stigma against romance books, and it's not that I want to hide who I am.
Mm-hmm.
My friends know, my husband's friends know, like I said, even one of my fighters knows. I have no problem with women knowing, but one of the things that I wanted to do is kind of distance myself a little bit, just so that my own students and my fighters feel safe with me, and they never feel like I'm pulling something from them for content, or for just so I can post a video of them looking hot when they're hitting pads, so that was kind of one of the reasons why I split it off, because I wanted to just kind of keep them safe too.
Yeah. And then thanks for sharing. I know sometimes listeners and readers kind of sometimes question the why. And I don't know. And unfortunately, sometimes it comes as if hey, are you ashamed? I'm like, no, there's so many different factors that hit first before that shame, ever even may have even been popping up, right? Or stigma against it. And so thanks for sharing that. I think it's important. People get curious. Sometimes they don't understand the why. And at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter what the why is. Just respect the fact that there is a pseudonym there or a pen name, and that's let's keep it at that, right? Don't need to be digging, don't be spying, don't become an MI5 for those that don't know. That's the FBI, espionage over there in the UK. But you also kind of mentioned writing other tropes and things like that. What are some of your favorite tropes to write?
My top trope is probably enemies to lovers, which is why my debut book was an enemies to lovers. I struggle a little bit with bully romance. So enemies to lovers is kind of my sweet spot. I do also love a well done age gap, and I do have plans to write an age gap, because I think that's, like I said, when done well, it's such a cool trope. Trying to think what other tropes I like. I do like the grumpy sunshine. That's probably another one. To the point that I mentioned earlier that I wrote a novella last year just to be able to kind of branch out and just move away from some of the characters that were in my MMA series. So I wrote a reverse grumpy sunshine, or grumpy sunshine, whatever people want to call it. And I love when the female is the grump. So and the man is the sunshine, but in general, whether it's whoever's the grump and whoever is the sunshine, that's like one of my favorite tropes. Tessa Bailey is one of my favorite authors, because I feel like she writes that trope so well. So those are probably my top three. Okay. I think.
Yeah, I think usually that whole grump to sunshine is usually the male's the grumpy one, and the girl's the sunshine. But I love the fact that that you were thinking about the opposite, because many times, like, us girls, we are not all sunshine. Sometimes we have shit that has happened to our lives. We're jaded, or just sometimes that's just not our personality. And just to have someone come in and be sunshine for us, that's nice.
And for my writing style, I mean, I love writing obsessed men. So, even though the grump can be obsessed, from the beginning, and you just don't really see it until later on. But for me, I like to make the men immediately obsessed. And I like to make my women very strong, badass, like I said earlier. And I would say 3 out of my 4 female main characters have been referred to in reviews as bitches. And I actually love that term because I aspire to be a bitch to men. Like I don't think of that as like a bad thing. But sometimes you're not all sunshine, sometimes you're all about work, or you're all about, I don't care about hurting your feelings. I have things to do, and I'm just going to tell it like it is. So that's kind of the common theme in my females. And then, like I said, with the men, I love to make them obsessed with the women right off the bat. So especially the sunshine male, he was a very, very fun character to write. And I couldn't stop at a novella, and I don't think novellas are my sweet spot. I think I get too obsessed with my own characters. So even that's turning into a novel because I like those characters so much, and I need, more of his sunshine. So the reverse.
It's kind of, and I kind of find it really like a little sad that we are, as within the community, we're really harder on the heroines and the female characters than we are on the guys.
Yep.
And I mean, the guys can be a complete ass. I mean, kill people, brutalize, verbally abuse, and the readers and the reviewers are like, but he's sweet, deep down inside. And then for the ladies, just because they are not going to sugarcoat something, oh, she's a bitch.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, I don't have time for that. Or people have placated the male so much that the fact that if someone has said something straightforward, now you're being too harsh. And so when I read listeners, and when I listen or read just characters that are just strong women that are not going to hide beneath that, it's always great. I also kind of like, oh man, we need to do better about the girls of the community to support these ladies, whether they're fictional or in real life, right?
Yeah, and it's interesting. One of the things I noticed when I started writing is there's certain kind of general ideas in the community that are just kind of accepted, and that's one of them. So you can, as an author, decide if you want to challenge that or just stick with what we know to be true about romance readers. Which for this is a perfect example. I read a bully romance one time that was probably the one that turned me off of bully romance. It was just not that there's anything wrong with it. It's just too much for me.
Right.
And the men, it was a reverse harem, and it was, oh my gosh, the men they did such horrible things to this woman. And she stood up for herself one time, and the reader reactions in general were, whatever they do, I still love them, but I hate this chick just because of this one time that she stood up and maybe went a little bit too far. So it's not something, I mean, it's just part of the world. It's part of the romance world. I think I like to challenge that one a little bit, which, does, sometimes it works out with readers, sometimes it doesn't. But like I said, I always tell people, if you want to write what you want to write and not what you think people want to read, because people can tell when it kind of comes from the heart or not. So,
we can tell if you guys are phoning it in. Just like sometimes we can tell when the narrators are phoning it in, and we're like, you're coming from me. Were you not on today, honey? But I think that it's true. I mean, I like honest reviews. I believe that, like, I personally think a 3-star is a good book. And
I agree.
Sometimes people are like, oh my God, she got a 3-star. I'm like, dude, that means I liked it.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to give away a 5. 5 has to be like perfection.
I completely agree. I'm very stingy with my 5 stars. And I'll tell you, as from an author's perspective, I don't want to say I like 3-star reviews the most, but I definitely find them to be the most valuable, because those are the ones that, I kind of learn from. And even as a reader, when I'm looking at a book that I want to read, if I look at the reviews, I kind of skim over the 5-star ones. I look at the 3-star ones. Those are the honest ones. So I'm a huge proponent of honest reviews, both, for authors and readers.
Yeah, and I have a handful of reviewer friends and people that I know that are more particular about giving out those 5s, and so those are the ones that I will be like, ooh, that is okay. That was a 5-star book for you.
Yep.
Oh, okay, let me go check that out. But I will read one of those 1-star reviews and kind of get some more insight, or those three to kind of get a better grip of what the book is about to see if it's for me. But I also know that sometimes people will use that bad negative review as the reason to buy the book. So hey,
Oh,
for those
100%.
that think that her characters are bitches because they're strong off of females, go ahead.
Yeah.
That's gonna work in your favor.
Romance is such a unique genre for that reason, I think, because I don't think there's any other genre that has that kind of effect. I mean, the 1-star reviews because it was too spicy, or because, like we said, the female's a bitch, that sells probably more of my books than the 5-star reviews. It's so interesting to me. I mean, I love it. I think it's interesting.
So now that you're starting to write, you have a couple books down under your belt, and you're looking into, you've been also reading and more into romance. Is there a subgenre? Because romance is such an umbrella term with all these subgenres underneath it, whether it's the sports, the cowboy, the historical, the sci-fi, so on and so forth. Is there a genre that you're kind of like, ooh, I might do this one day, that you're looking to maybe getting into, that you'd like to try?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Right now, my novella series is kind of the way that my intent was to try out tropes and characters that, I can't fit into a character series. So if I have, kind of inclinations, that's where I'll put it. But as far as bigger picture, I mean, right now my focus is definitely on the MMA series. So sports romance is what I'm into right now. But the thing that I really, really want to get into, some of the best romance books I've read have been like suspenseful romance, or almost like a romantic thriller. And I've got a couple ideas rolling around in my brain, one of which I am absolutely dying to write. Would be like a romantic thriller duet kind of thing. And it's kind of because, it's my two reading passions combined. I've read so many thrillers in my life. And like I said, that was kind of my first love, but I love romance to the point that it's really all I like to read anymore. So it's kind of the perfect colliding of worlds. And my main goal that I want to get to, because it's such a different way of writing. Like, my books are very character based, and I get a lot of people that say that they just feel very realistic. Like, I write about, real people, and, you read them, and I have my characters, they have this hobby, they have their friends, they have a job, and it's like anybody could do it, so it really feels like you could meet this male character in real life and have this actually happen. So they're very realistic right now, and they're very character based. Thrillers obviously feel more plot based. So that's kind of the next step for me, and I think that'll be my next challenge, keeping kind of the love for the characters, but getting into a little bit more plot based, and
Who done it?
and thrillers are very, very difficult to write. I swear, I think they're one of the hardest ones, because there has to be a twist, and you have to build up to it the right way. So it can't be so subtle that it's just confusing, but it can't be so obvious that it gives it away. It can't be confusing, right? You have to do it. You have to lay out the pieces very strategically. So I've always found thrillers to be the hardest to write. So that's kind of my Everest.
Nice. Well,
so that's what I want to get into.
It's interesting too, because I mean, we do have the romantic suspense, and I always talked about with the authors that write that genre, it's like, it's always interesting to me where bullets are flying, guns are blazing, things are going boom, but they're like, you look hot right now, I'm going to make out with you. And in the middle of that scene of things going kaboom, it's just so much fun. Or they'll start and they're like, okay, but let's put a pin on this right now, and we're going to get out of this escape zone first, and then we'll continue. But I also know that there's been a lot of talk in the industry from the readers that they would love to see more romantic thrillers, a little bit more of that, that more murder mystery, whodunit, but still have that romance in it. And I think also too, that kind of is stemming from some thrillers have some romantic elements in it, whether it's that little, the PI that knows that someone in the precinct that's an officer that kind of have that chemistry, and then won't they, but that nothing ever happens on the page because it's a thriller. So I think we're kind of wanting that. So that's great that you're hoping to get into that.
I think we're going to see more of those too. I mean, I feel like the number one that shows up on my social media feed is Mindfuck, by St. Abby. And it's one of my favorite series of all time. Anytime I get lumped on like a favorites list with that book, I lose my mind. But I think we're going to start to see more of those because we can also kind of see it with fantasy as well. So, fantasy is, I forget what order the top genres are in, but it's fantasy, romance, and thriller. Again, I don't know if it's in that order. But if you combine any one of those or any two of those, I think it gets rated highly. And I forget what it's romantasy, or I think that's what they call romantic fantasy. But we see so much of those. Yeah. I think that's what it's called. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, even A Court of Thorns and Roses. I mean, it's a huge series, and so we see a lot of fantasy and romance combined. So I think we're going to see more and more kind of thrillers and romance combined. So
good.
That's my goal.
Yeah, I'll definitely put you on that. Ooh, you'll get that. So, hey, Nikki, how's that book coming?
Yeah, I'm okay with that. Every time I get messages or edits or questions or anything, I'm like, oh, I got to sit down right now. It like motivates me.
Okay, good. Okay, cool. Awesome. So I know that as of right now, this instance, you do not have any audio books under the belt as far as being done and stuff like that. But I do know, because you shared, that you are actually working on one. You want to tell us what that looks like and is? Little bit?
Absolutely. Yeah. So to be completely transparent, I am not a huge audiobook listener just because I totally understand the appeal. I know that it's huge, especially in this genre. I'm just a very visual person, and I don't commute a lot. I work from home. So if I'm reading, I love my Kindle. So one of the things that kind of kept me from audiobooks was, one, I don't listen to a lot of them, so it's newer for me, and I'm going to rely very heavily on I've got a couple friends that are huge audiobook listeners and are going to beta listen for me, so it's basically, it's not a project that I took lightly. So they are very expensive to produce, and I am in contract right now. It is getting produced in May, so I'm hoping to have my very first book, 5 Rounds, which is my bestseller, is going to be the first one that I tackle in audiobook. I do plan to get all books in that series, and hopefully all books in general, to be produced in audiobook. And I'm very excited about it. I'm obsessed with the narrators that we picked, and I'm excited for it. It's just, it took me a while to kind of make the commitment to do it because, like I said, they're more expensive than I anticipated.
Yeah, there's so many different things that come into play as far as the cost for audiobooks, and they are expensive, but that's also the fact that depending on who the narrators are, the per finished hour rate changes. If there is a production company, what's inclusive of that production company, if they're getting things edited for you, or if they're having something else done. There's so many different factors that a lot of time I think readers and listeners don't realize. I think they're starting to learn more now of what it takes, and also that an investment comes up front. So we're hoping, right, that once you have this book in audio, that either the fans are going to love it and it's going to get picked up. That's going to make it a return on investment. So you can go, oh, okay, yeah, let's do more.
Yeah. And for me, the biggest thing that I looked at, obviously the narrators are super important. For me, I wasn't necessarily looking at, the highest level of narrators. I did look at Joe Arden, I did look at Teddy Hamilton, but as far as the book that I'm looking for narrators for, the main thing that I was looking at was the right voice. So
as it should be.
And I haven't actually announced this yet, but Aiden Snow is going to play Tristan in the first book. And when I tell you, I'm obsessed with that man's voice. I don't think I can stress it enough. I am so excited. I've been listening to audiobooks for the past 2 weeks just because I have Audible credits, and I'm like, well, let me just buy all the Aiden Snow books.
It's a good way to go. You're good.
Yeah. So he has single-handedly turned me into an audiobook listener. So he's my male, and then Maxine Mitchell, whose voice I also love, is my Remy for the female. So I'm very excited to hear them together. And actually, I love going to book signings. And the one in Philly, I'm a Philly-based author. The one in Philly always brings out the top narrators. You get Emma Wilder, you have Teddy Hamilton, Shane East was there. They do this whole panel, and a year and a half ago, I kind of stopped the whole show and I got the whole table talking about, are we going to see more duet, or do you guys even like doing duet, or what's the reason there isn't more duet? And the answer was kind of, it's basically twice as expensive.
Yeah.
But I got a very interesting take from all of them saying, they do think that we're going to see more of it. And the cool thing about it is you get even better chemistry because you have people reading together. Yeah. So, if I'm Maxine Mitchell and I'm reading a scene and I hear Aiden Snow in my ear, I mean, it's just automatically going to make the scene better from my end, I think. So they did say that they liked doing them. And like I said, that they feel like they get better chemistry when you're actually with someone else. So all of that is just making me very excited for this audiobook.
Good. Well, thanks for sharing that. No, Aiden Snow is definitely a great pick. I think you hit the nail on the head too, that it's important to find the right voice for these characters and not solely go on what may be popular at the time. We have so many up and coming narrators that are, just as good, some even better than some of the really popular ones right now, because they have something different or they're doing something unique. And it's always, again, what's best for, can they get the character? Does that character be believable? Whether it's accents or delivery of line or cadence or something like that. So it's great. And Maxine Mitchell's awesome too. She's great. I think she has done more duets, maybe. It is something that's been happening more and more often now in the past 2 or 3 years, more popular now. Yeah. And I think it works great, specifically when the author writes really great banter.
Yeah.
Right? And
which I love writing banter, especially in Enemies to Lovers. It's kind of the thing that sells it for me. So it just felt necessary.
Yeah. Oh, it's a little hard to interrupt yourself in conversation bantering, right? The editor can be fantastic. The editing is done great. I bow down to these editors that do multicast and duets. Some of them are. It used to be people used to be able to go into the studio and have it like literally right in front of each other. But since the whole pandemic thing happened, and that's also when duet has, risen to popularity via Zoom call. But these editors are now doing it where the narrators do all their own lines and then they get mixed in and as one. So that is, again, bowing down to these editors that can make it sound as if they're in the exact same room.
And these are kind of the things that I mean, this was all news to me, but these are kind of the things that the production company that I booked with kind of laid out for me that I never would have thought of, even if I was an avid audiobook listener. But, with duet, it's if you get lucky and both narrators are in the same city, then you can have them record in the same studio. Or you can do it over Zoom, but again, then you're paying twice as much because their one is basically just sitting there listening to the other read their lines and kind of waiting for their time to jump in. So these are things that I never ever really thought about, or either that or the editor where they have to kind of splice and edit the clips together. So there's so many different ways to do it, which is just all props to them because it's just, there's so much to consider. So, but the duet ones that I've heard have been fantastic. The biggest one that I hear is the Ravenhood series. That seems to be kind of the most well-known duet narration from what I hear. But
we got to get you more into the audiobook world, girl. There's
I'm on my way. So I'm gonna message you after
out
this.
There. Yes, we're gonna have to catch you up on audio because there's so many there's anything from paranormal to romantic suspense. There's so many great audiobooks that are I know controversial, coming way better than Ravenhood out there too. So yes, I said it. Sorry, don't come at me if you do.
I get it.
I don't care. But I mean, there's just and not taking anything away from Ravenhood. I think that's one that people may have come first into audio, never listened before, and it's great. Or it's someone that may have started that genre that have never read anything else before in romance. But there's so many great things out there. That's where I love being able to have these conversations with you guys, that some listeners are like, I never thought that I was going to be into MMA. And I'm like, now they're going to go pick it up. Or they're going to come talk to you and say, Nikki, I did not know that you did not go into audio until recently. Have you heard XYZ book, right? And you'll get recommendations. It's so much fun and this community is so great. But yeah, we're gonna have to get you up and running on audio as far as
Yeah, I
listening.
mean, I just started with the production company a couple weeks ago, so I'm just now really diving into it. And I had a funny moment a couple months ago. I don't know if anyone else can feel for this, but romance wasn't really working for me. Like I said, I think it was because the dual just doesn't work for my brain. So there was a free audiobook for this very, very well-known thriller by Lisa Jewell. And I think I had like a 3-hour drive that I needed to make. So I was like, you know what, this is my opportunity. And I had to turn it off halfway through because I got so creeped out. And I was like, I remember thinking maybe this audiobook is like too good, where, and thrillers are usually one point of view, or a lot of times even third person. So you don't have the question of switching point of views. And I just got so creeped out. I was like, maybe I can't do thrillers and audio either, but I think I found my sweet spot with romance. So I'm excited to dive in more.
Well, that's them doing and not only that the book in itself is a good quality book, but that the narrators that were selected were great at what they do because of that. There have been times, trust me, I crush on a few female narrators out there because of just how they perform in general. But there are a handful of those that I'm like, Vivi, you're straight and they're girls and they're actually just playing the guy on the voice, because you forget sometimes that they do such a great job, whether even when it comes down to other girls in their accents, if the character has an accent, that when I then talk to them on the phone, I'm like, oh, that's right, you're not from the South. Or you're not British. And things like that, and you're going, wow, it was just so believable that you're like, wow, okay, good, yeah.
My favorite female narrator, and I'm hoping so hard that I can get her for book 2 in the series once I can get past this first one. I'm like tunnel vision now. I'm like, we're gonna do the whole series. Emma Wilder by far is my favorite female narrator.
One of mine too.
When I listen to her, I'm like, baby girl, I feel like I'm listening to you having an orgasm like in the studio right now. Like her voice is so sexy, and she's so perfect for the female main character in my second book. That I'm like, and my second book is the one I'm the most proud of. It's got a little bit of a more intense storyline, and it's very difficult to write, and it's just the one that I'm most proud of. So I'm like, if I can get her, I might never get over this book. so I'm putting that into the universe right now because she's my favorite.
Yeah, she's one of mine. There's this quality to her voice, and there's this huskiness and stuff like that, but there's just something in there that's a little hard to describe. That is just like, for me, it's like perfection. Which is one of the reasons why I love her how she, decides to portray the characters, the vulnerability, but also sometimes the hardness that needs to be behind that. The sexy, again, I'm all about Emma Wilder. So she's amazing. Girl. I love her. She's great. But yeah, you guys need to get her on that figuring out schedule, because these narrators get booked up.
I know,
months, sometimes even years in advance at this point, because of popularity of audiobooks, which is great. I mean,
and I totally get it too. And that was an eye opener for me too. Not that I should have realized it. I just, because I didn't know anything. I basically got on the call with this production company, and I'm like, so are we talking about like a 2-month project or like a 6-month project? Because they're so booked out. So, but then again, I'll wait for Emma. So, maybe we don't get another audiobook for another year, but
you know what? And thank you for that. I think that's also important. If you know the narrator is the voice for this one character, I never say, hey, we can try to find, when I'm helping with casting, let's look to see if there's, in other words, I have someone else in mind that may have a good quality of voice. But if Emma is it, and I'm like, well, then your options are gonna have to wait for Emma to be available.
There's no other option.
And so in that as the listeners, I think that once we know this from you guys, that it's because of that's who it is. We're like, okay, fine. In the meantime, keep writing. We'll eyeball read, and that's fine too.
We'll sacrifice the Kindle read or the paperback read.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, we'll wait. No worries. When it's worth it, it's worth the wait. Trust me on that. That's for sure. Yeah. So now you mentioned Maxine, and I know that in the conventions and stuff like that, you're actually going to Readers Take Denver, March 30th through April 2nd.
Yes, it is my first official signing. I've done like meet and greets and stuff, and I don't know if I was doing something wrong. I probably was, but I could not for the life of me get onto any book signings in 2022. So the funniest part is I would just go as an attendee and I would just like wander around, which I also love because then you can actually, stop and talk to people. And I got to hang out with a couple readers and that's super fun too. So I might do that for a few signings this year too. But yeah, Readers Take Denver is my first official one. I am so freaking excited for it. I love talking to people. I love socializing, and this is kind of like a dream come true. I just got added to a panel for Readers Take Denver this morning, so that sounds fun to me too. And I'm in the process of it's not official yet, so it's a premature announcement, but I'm trying to get my cover model to come with me for the weekend because I absolutely love when cover models join authors at these signings. So I did a special edition cover from my latest release in November with a fitness model. He's just a joy to work with, and readers absolutely love him, and he's got a great personality. So I'm trying to get him to Readers Take Denver to use him as eye candy, I guess. But yeah, in general, I love signings. It's my first one. I've got 4 total booked for 2023. I'm trying to do more because I like traveling. I like talking to people. It's just kind of a sweet spot. So
yeah.
But yeah, Readers Take Denver, I think is my biggest one of 2023. So
probably, yeah. It's right now, I think, one of the more bigger conventions, not only in duration, it is a 4-day thing, and it's going to be filled with so many fun parties and socials and panels and signings. Yeah, it's going to be a fun thing. Plus, it gives people, I think, more time to kind of hang out and connect with other readers and listeners. We have a bunch of narrators that are going to be coming too that we're starting to announce. But I know that Maxine Mitchell is one of them. So.
Oh my gosh, really? I did not know that.
We haven't announced all the narrators as of goodies yet. I know some of them have already been listed on the website, but many people don't go there and read anything. And that's okay. But we love dropping the announcements on our socials for the Readers Take Denver's account. Same way here. Like, I don't even share who I'm talking to next. I'm like, you want to know who I'm talking to next? Stay tuned.
Yeah.
Listen to the episode. So yeah, but Maxine Mitchell is slated to be there at Denver, so you'll get to meet her.
Ooh, that's amazing because I think the recording starts in second week of May for me. So now I'm even more excited. And in general, I mean, I don't know. I haven't seen any other signings that do like multiple day tickets like this. Like I know Readers Take Denver does. There's only one ticket. And it's the cost of the 4 days. So, it's not your normal, $30 entrance fee to 1 3-hour signing kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I love it because like you said, it's 4 days, you get way more interaction. And I feel like most of the time when I go to signings, you try really hard, and I always make a list of readers and people that I know are going to be there. And I make sure that I message them and try to meet up with them. And there's always 1 or 2 that it just doesn't work out with. But when it's 4 days, it becomes way easier to not just meet people, but actually spend time with them. So
yeah,
I love the setup and the schedule for Denver. And I've got a couple authors. My PA is going to be there, who I've only met once before. So there's going to be a bunch of people that I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm excited to meet you. So it's going to be a good weekend.
It's funny how we have these relationships with people, whether it's professional work-wise or friendships online. And then we're like, online. And we're like, okay, are you going? You're going. Okay, we're going to meet. And it's fun. Yeah. It's a 4-day. I know people have said, oh my God, it's so expensive sometimes, but honestly, the price for this event, and I'm going to mention it here because it's something that I think, because we've been in the pandemic and these are now starting to come up again, there have been other conventions that are 4 days long. Book Lover Con is one that's 4 days long, I think. And there are some that are maybe 2 days, but does not include everything within the tickets. There's some stuff that there used to be like Book Lovers, the RT Book Lovers Convention, which was the biggest convention ever for professionals. I mean, you would have 2 lines, like a bunch of panels and things you can go to as a reader, and then some of you were like for developmental for authors. from, plots, writing, pen stringing, audiobook production, what that looks like. There's all this, lots of downloading that you would have to do as far as mentally goes. But it was a multiple day event. It was almost about 4 days, and so everything was inclusive of it. But then again, that's no longer happening nowadays. Sometimes conventions are 1 or 2 days, but if you want to go to the afternoon party, that's extra dollars. If you want to go to this, that's more dollars. So you end up spending significantly more on a 1 or 2 day event versus a 4 day event. In this case, convention that includes
everything. Yeah.
Everything, all the parties, all the fun stuff. The authors are going to be there. Yeah. There's going to be so much more fun stuff that's still being announced that I know are coming down the pipeline. So it's going to be lots of fun. And bonus goes out, a lot of stuff goes towards the charity that they're working with. So, which a lot of other places don't do as well. Yeah. So we have Julie's Friends is the name of the charity, and goes to helping, furry kid owners, furry pet owners. And so it's going to be fun. But I'm excited that you're going to be there, and we're going to pop your cherry, huh?
I'm excited.
Yeah, it's a great way to pop a cherry. I'm telling you that right now. The authors that are attending are star-studded, and so are the narrators that are going, and it's just going to be so much fun. So I'm thrilled that you're going, and that's also going to be your first official signing.
Yeah, so I feel like I'm gonna fangirl, and I do when I meet them. I mean, I go to these signings, and I walk around and I meet authors, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm such a huge fan. So I'm probably gonna fangirl out as well. But yeah, I'm super excited. This seems like the ideal one to pop my cherry with, honestly.
Yes. Yeah, if you really had one that you were thinking about, this is definitely the one that I think is going to be the best for you as far as anything and everything that goes on it. It's going to be fun. Like I said, really, it's lots of fun stuff, and yeah, I'm also
people.
I love seeing that you guys as authors are also fans and readers as well. And that happens. So you won't be the only one that will be fangirling over other authors. There will be other authors fangirling over you. There are going to be other authors fangirling over others. So it's going to be we're all lovers of romance. That's why we're in here, right? So fantastic. One of the things I love doing with my guests to get to know you guys better, but also to figure out how good of a liar you are. No, I'm just kidding. Is to play a game called Two Truths and a Lie, where you tell us 3 things about yourself and we have to figure out which one's the lie. And I always say we because I really love the fact that the listeners are hopefully playing along with me as well. They're listening to the podcast. So why don't you tell us your 3 things, and then we'll try to figure out which one's the lie.
Okay. I thought so hard about this one. I don't think I've ever actually I feel like I've seen authors do this one, and I always wanted to do it, but I never actually thought about it. So I've been thinking about this for half an hour before this call. So, all right, I got 2 truths and a lie. So my first one is that and they're all going to be MMA themed because I like to stick with my theme of my MMA series. So first one is that I married my coach. My second one is that I fought at Madison Square Garden. And my third one is that I beat up a mugger that was trying to rob me.
Oh. Okay, I really hope that whole being of the mugger that was trying to rob you is true.
That one is true.
Yeah, good. Okay, good. Yes, good. Okay, so now we have whether you married your coach, which is such a romantic trope.
I know, right?
Or that you fought at Madison Square Garden. Ooh, okay. Is the lie? Yeah, I kind of want both of them to be true for you.
I don't know why if I'm playing this game right, but these were so hard to come up with.
I know, that's the thing. Well, here's the thing. First of all, great that at the end of the day, if these were all true, we love you even more so, and and things like that. That's fantastic. And also the accomplishments of all of these are great too. Oh, let's see. Married your coach or Madison Square Garden? I want to say that the lie is that you married your coach.
That is correct. Yes. So technically, we were both coaches. We were both fighters. So I was I'm very proud of the fact that I didn't start training because of this guy. We were both equally passionate about the sport. We were both coaches. So he wasn't my coach. But a little sneak peek, I am planning on writing an age gap romance with a coach figure because I'm just obsessed with it. But yes, that's technically the lie. I did fight at Madison Square Garden. I won too.
Nice.
So that's
See?
there's my that's my resume for my for my writing these MMA romances. You know, I actually have knowledge.
Yeah.
So good guess.
I didn't doubt it, and I'm not going to be the stupid one that tries to, make you believe it, because I ain't. Don't want to pick a fight with this one, okay? Oh, that's awesome. Oh yeah, and again, sorry that you were trying to get mugged. I that's not the good part, but talk about messing with the wrong person.
Yeah, it was the funniest part. I always like telling that story because I was in college, and Philadelphia is not a dangerous city if you do things the right way. I mean, I feel like every city has danger.
Yeah.
But yeah, that happened. Guy grabbed me, I punched him in the face, knocked him out, and I called my dad after. My favorite part of the story is that I started training when I was 14, so I feel like I've been doing this my whole life. Actually, more than half my life now that I think about it. And I called my dad, and I told him, guy tried to rob me, and his first reaction was, and my dad's very active. I don't want to say active on my social media, but I talk about my dad because he's like the greatest cheerleader ever. Everybody kind of knows Papa Castle on my Instagram. Aww. So he's just a very beloved character. And I don't think I've ever actually told this story before. So when I called him and I told him what happened, his first reaction was, "Did you get him good?"
He knows his girl. He knows his girl.
I was like, "Yeah, Dad, I got him good." He's like, "I gotta call your coach. Hold on, let me hang up and call you back." So fighting is just a very bizarre. I mean, it's my books are they paint MMA as a sport, which is the biggest focus of my books. It's not just guys punching each other in the face.
Yeah.
It is also a sport, but they're all there's also a self-defense aspect. And my favorite events at the gym, at our gym, are the kind of the self-defense seminars. I love when we do them as bachelorette parties. We do like a self-defense thing because it's really fun watching girls learn how to throw a punch or how to bitch slap. That's like so it's my personal favorite.
Yeah. No, trust me, it's one of those where you have that moment where they underestimate you because you're a girl, and they try to do something stupid because you're the girl. Yeah. And to be able to see that look on their face when you have beat the shit out of them.
Yeah. I never saw that guy again. Never showed up in the neighborhood ever again.
Right. Yeah, I had one of those when I was doing the sport for the Taekwondo, and he picked me as for a sparring partner, thinking that
every girl has the experience.
Yep. And I had him crying, holding his ball.
Oof. Nice.
Oh yeah. Nice. It's one of those things where like, don't ever mess with the girl. You just don't know.
Don't assume. Don't
assume.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, and again, Papa Castle, I love you.
He's such a beloved character. I love him.
and the fact that he's so supportive of you and was supportive of you, and then a lot of parents sometimes are afraid for the girls to go on to something that's a little bit more physical. And and I understand that from a parent's perspective, we don't want our kids to ever get hurt, but to be supportive and know that they can kick ass, like yeah. Way better. Way better. Yeah. That was also in our house growing up. It was one of those, if you're being bullied and they're going to hit, and you let them throw the first punch, just make sure they don't stand up again.
Yep. That sounds like something my dad said growing up.
Right?
Yeah.
Perfect. So one thing also too that I love to know, because you work with words all day long, because as a writer, you're constantly utilizing them. But what are your favorite words? And I say words because of the fact that there's two-part question. First, what your favorite word, and the second part is going to be what's your favorite curse word. So you can't use one and the same.
Ooh, can I answer the second question first?
Sure.
So I'd say my favorite curse word. We can say anything on here, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, I guess if you're asking that question, I kind of has to be a yes. I love using the word cunt. I think in the right situation, it hits so hard. And it's I don't use that word lightly. Yep. I think sometimes curse words are just kind of thrown around, and I do like cursing. If you meet me in person and I feel comfortable with you, I'll probably, drop a couple F-bombs. But I think cunt is such a great, very descriptive word. I don't think now that I think about it, I don't think I've used one in any of my books. I think I might use one in the next one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the other thing too, because now knowing that, right, that it's not something that you just throw around and stuff like that. When I see that word in one of your books now, I'm going to be like, "Ooh, that bad."
Vivi inspired that sentence. That's what you're going to think.
God. As long as it's not, me using my character name and stuff
No,
like
it's
that.
not. Yeah.
But I that's the other thing too. That's actually one of my favorite words that if my group of insert of group of friends that are really close, if I ever say, my God, they're such a cunt, they know. Yes. They know.
Like, I mean that with my soul.
Yes. And that person has done something deserving of that title.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So yeah. So I feel you. I understand. But yeah, it's a good word when used appropriately.
Yes, and I don't know. I don't know if you've answered this on a previous podcast, but out of curiosity, what's your favorite curse word? I feel like you would have a good one.
Oh, see, it depends too. I mean, I can use fuck as an adjective word and a noun and all that fun stuff.
Yes.
I know that when people know that I'm upset, and that someone has really driven again, like I just said, cunt can come out here and there, very rarely though. But also because I'm bilingual, sometimes if I'm really pissed off, the Spanish comes into play. Entonces
okay.
me cago en su puta madre que te parió. It's like there's this in Spanish. Yeah.
That was a whole feeling in a sentence.
Yes, and that's what's the things about I love about being bilingual is and having that Spanish heritage and ethnicity is that the language is so passionate and in both good and bad. And when you can actually put together a bunch of different really curse words and make it into like a long strung out sentence, but the emotions behind it, and you're like, damn.
Comes from the soul.
Yes.
Same thing.
Depth, of the souls. I know sometimes those that have Italian backgrounds and speak Italian, if that, if something comes out in Italian, you're like, oh, no, she's pissed. It came out Italian. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. But curse is definitely like I go, fuck is really one of those that I go, really good into. That's a bunch of bullshit. I mean, that's, traditional stuff too, but cunt. And if I start with the Spanish, you're like, oh, she pissed.
See, I never really thought about that because so my parents are both immigrants, so I'm also bilingual. I speak Hungarian. And I'm totally fluent. But the thing is, when you grow up and the only people in your life that speak this other language are your parents, they're not going to teach you curse words.
Right. Yes.
So I always felt like that was like the main thing I was missing. And Hungarian is a very flowery language. There's a lot of words. And I feel like during the day, I end up in plenty of situations where I'm like, there's like a perfect word for this in Hungarian and there's no translation in English. And as much as, I like that feeling, but like, I never learned how to curse in Hungarian. It's my biggest regret. So, I mean, I know curse words, but like there's a difference between, it's like when you're a kid, like there's a difference between knowing the curse words and like knowing how to use them correctly.
Yes. That is true. That is absolutely true.
I can definitely feel for the Spanish cursing.
Yeah. Well, maybe you can go to Papa Castle and say, hey, it's for research purposes. There's going to be a character that's going to be popping in just real briefly. And they're, Hungarian background. And when they get upset, they curse in Hungarian.
Give me just like a good phrase. I got to call up my cousins. Like, just give me like what phrase fits here well.
Yeah. But that's true. I mean, from an immigrant perspective, I didn't learn the curse words from my family either.
Yeah.
It was the friends that I knew that were from different. And also because of, and I'm sure it might be the same thing with I think almost depending on where you're from in the country. Certain words can mean certain different things, but also too with Spanish being so many different countries, there's one word in like that there can mean literally let's say they use the word straw in Spanish in one country can mean vagina in the other and can mean fuck in another. So you're like, who am I talking to? Okay, so I can use this word. Okay, good. But yeah, do you have a favorite word? In general, like stuff.
I don't think I've ever been asked this question. The only one that kind of, I don't know if this is, I'm going to think about this and I'm going to message you in like a week and say, I changed my answer. The only one that pops to mind is kind of a very romance specific word. And it's irrevocably. For whatever reason, that feels like a very like passionate, like love focused word. Like I don't think I've used it either. Maybe I have. I don't know. I gotta check my first book. If I use it anywhere, it's probably in that one. but when a character says, I'm irrevocably in love with you, and maybe it goes back to, oh my God, was that in Twilight? Is that where I'm pulling that from? I feel like it may have been in Twilight. Maybe it's like my teen romance days, but that always felt like such a passionate word to me. Now, if you ask me what words I hate, I got a whole fucking list of those. So that's an easier question to answer.
See, maybe I'll get you when we're in Denver. Maybe I'll do like a live or something, or do a recording with you, and I'm like, okay,
what words do you hate?
What words do you hate? Because I have said it. You're like, I fucking hate. I'm like, oh, that's gonna be a good list to talk about.
Oh, yep. I got a whole rant prepared at any point, even if I'm a couple tequila shots deep. It'll be on the tip of my tongue.
Makes note to bring tequila to Denver.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, this is gonna be fun.
Oh, it's all so excited.
Well, and then a good note. Not that anything is never a good note with someone I'm talking to you guys. But before we go, tell us what you're working on and what's coming up next for you.
So I work on one book at a time, and then what comes after that, I have no idea. So really my only update right now, beyond, the audiobook coming out, it'll be after Denver. It'll be probably at some point in June.
Okay.
But as far as books that I'm writing right now, I'm working on book 4 in my fight game series. I always like to introduce my characters in the previous book. So this is not news, but in book 3, I introduced characters named Cain and Isabella. So Cain is my angry boy, big tattooed, angry MMA fighter kind of character, and Isabella is my badass ballerina. I don't have time for your shit kind of FMC. So they're my next book. I'm hoping it takes me about, right now, next to my full-time job, it takes me about 6 months to write and edit books. I'm big on editing. So that'll probably be June timeframe, I think, is what I'm estimating. And then after that, it's kind of anybody's guess what I write. It'll either be book 5 in the series, or it'll be if I get the bug to turn, at some point I will, but if I get the bug after book 4 to turn my novella, my Reverse Grumpy Sunshine, into a full-length novel, it'll basically be a sequel novel for them. So one after that could be either of those two.
Okay.
And then kind of beyond that, it's really anybody's guess. I've got so many ideas. Nobody told me that once you start writing, you just get plagued with all these ideas, and then you have to decide what to write. And and I can't write books at the same time because I get so absorbed in my characters that I can only focus on, 2 at a time. Yeah, basically. So I never really know what's coming next. It was kind of a funny feeling, when 2023 hit. I saw all these authors posting about, their 2023 release schedule, and I had to post and be like, look, I got no idea what's going to happen. So come along on this ride with me. And I'm very transparent on Instagram. I like sharing, even kind of the audiobook journey. I like sharing what I'm going through and kind of what's happening. So Instagram is my main kind of platform and how I keep in touch with people. So book 4 is next, and then after that, it's anybody's guess.
Well, maybe you'll start plotting some of that romantic
thriller. That's the other thing. I've got that plotted too, and I'm like, well, when do I write it? I'm hoping, my biggest goal for 2023, since it's still January, is to quit my job and go full time, because then I'd like to be able to put more books out and be able to kind of focus more of my mental energy on it. So maybe we will get the romantic thriller this year. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, I wish you the best of all that. Hopefully, to be able to quit that day job, because trust me, what that feeling looks like.
Yes.
Yes. Fantastic. And I think sometimes it's great when you can plan out in advance. At the same time, you never know when a character pops into your head, right? And so now you're like, I have to move everything around. Well, technically you don't, because you didn't have anything, kind of laid out. So that's great. No worries.
Yeah. And it kind of comes back to the same thing I tell people who want to start writing, where they're like, I always tell them to write what they want and what they want, really. And it's kind of the same mentality I keep with myself too, where if I I swear readers can tell when you liked writing a book or when you were writing it for the right reasons or when your heart is in it. They can tell. They can tell every single time, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So this kind of frees me up to be able to just write what I want and let me get absorbed for a couple months. And I get absorbed every single time. I get obsessed with every book, every release. And nothing else exists in the world. I turn into the worst wife ever because I'm just so focused on these characters. So it makes it easier.
Yeah. Well, again, I think the readers can tell. I know for sure. I know I can when I'm like, oh, you're just fulfilling this. Okay, yeah, you said that you were going to do it. Okay, great. And then otherwise, I'm like, oh, you really like this one, huh?
Yeah.
We can tell. So we appreciate that. Anytime that we get a story that the author is excited about, I think we get even more excited about reading it. So it's the best combination. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to hang out with me today. I appreciate you and the time.
Yeah, this was super fun. I love podcasts and I absolutely love talking to you. This was fantastic.
Yeah.
And I'm so excited to meet you in Denver.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. You're going to be like, yo, Nikki.
What was that list again?
Yeah. Who are you? Come on. Oh, Viv. Yeah, okay, got it. Yeah, it's happening. It's okay. No, yeah, but it's been such a fun time. I love talking to you guys and finding new ways to connect and discover new books. And it's just one of those things where it's just so much fun. So I appreciate taking the time. I'm going to make sure to include all your information as far as websites and newsletters and social media over at the post that you can find all the information at Viviana, Enchantress of Books. And until next time, happy listening.
Thank you to all of our Audiobook Lovin Podcast Patreon. Special thanks to Nixley Zenner, Carol Liebner, Brittany Robinette Leiter, Michelle Bastard, Brandy Schmidt, April Branson. The Audiobook Lovin Podcast has special Patreon access levels. Join today to receive benefits including early access to episodes, shout-outs, special exclusive content, and much more. Support the podcast by becoming a Patreon at www.patreon.com/audiobookloving. We thank you for your support.
Thank you for joining us on the Audiobook Lovin Podcast, hosted by Viviana, Enchantress of Books. For links and more information discussed in today's episode, previous podcasts, or the Audiobook Lovin Series, please visit our website, vivianaenchantressofbooks.com. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave a positive review wherever you listen to our podcast. Until next time, happy listening.